Um, my name is Mario, and I'm a researcher at AHS University. I'm a neuroscientist, and I want to talk about my theory of consciousness. This is a theory that I have developed during many years of thinking, um, more than 15 years, maybe 20. It's called on-off synecdoche, and I will explain what that means. Um, this is a very long presentation, so I will have to skip many slides. Sorry about that. Um, basically, it's a mixture of physics, cybernetics, and philosophy of mind. So these are the three components of my theory. So neuroscience and cybernetics, philosophy of mind, and something related to cybernetics that is about the model of self. So this is the most important part of the theory. Um, but I also have slides about motivating the concept of consciousness and theory of consciousness. So if you are familiar with these, you can skip them. I'm not sure what's best for us, but I guess if you give me feedback, it will be easier. Um, so the main goal of this theory is to explain why um, there are subjective experiences, being in consciousness, and why consciousness is private. It cannot be shared between people, and explain the difference between conscious and unconscious activity in the brain. What I'm doing here is a thought experiment, which I think you're familiar with. Basically, it says that if I swap two colors, like red and green, and everyone did the same thing inside their head, this is a thought experiment, it's not real, we would not notice a difference. Um, so this is referring to an attribute of consciousness, which is called quality. This is the definition of Frank Jackson, one consciousness researcher, which is instances of subjective experience, consciousness, which physics cannot account for. So this is the main point. There are things in consciousness that nothing in physics can explain. So I'm not going to explain that because now I think it's impossible, but I'm going to give the closest possible explanation that I think is correct. Um, so, as I was saying, this is called the heart problem in neuroscience. Actually, the heart problem is a concept coined by David Chalmers, which you just mentioned, and which is that after we have this completely described and understood all the functions of the brain in terms of physics, like we take physics and explain how the brain works, we still do not understand uh, why there is consciousness. That's called the heart problem. So this cannot be explained with anything in physics, at least the physics that we have today. So if we supplement the physics with something new, maybe we could explain it. But nowadays, physics cannot explain this. So the main goal of the theory is answering this question. What distinguishes conscious from unconscious states in the brain? Okay. So this is a crucial concept of my theory. It's simple. The basics are simple, but the details are complicated. This is the distinction between the T cell and the B cell. Um, the P self is what I call the physical self. For a human being like us, the P self is everything that you call myself. It's my body, my hands, my head, my brain, my thoughts, everything. All the physical matter that makes me is the P self. That's easier to understand. And then there is the D self. The D self is a bit more complicated, but you know what it is intuitively. Um, it's the internal model of yourself. So inside your brain, the brain has a model of the world. And inside that model, there is a model of yourself, of your body, and of your thoughts, and everything that makes yourself. This is not a theoretical construct. It's really like that. The brain has a model of the world and also a model of itself and our body. That's why I call it B cell. So basically, the B cell is a model inside the brain. The B cell is your physical self.
Maybe it would be more clear if you say why G. G correlates with some word. What do you mean by G?
I didn't. So, dummy self, basic self, diachronic self, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I have several reasons to call it B self, but it's not really important. It's just a name. Um, Initially, I call it B self because, um, well, you can turn it upside down if you don't speak. But also because diachronic self, I haven't explained what's that, but basically part of the model of the brain is explaining through time what you're going to do in the future. So that's why I call it diachronic self. But that's not very important. It's just a name, diesel. I have to give the name, so I call it like that. Basically, it's the model inside your brain of yourself. Why is this important for consciousness? It's because what you perceive consciously is not the diesel. You have never seen the diesel. This is not accessible to your consciousness. The only thing you see is this. But this is not the real yourself. This is just a model inside your brain. You have never seen your body. I mean, you have never perceived directly your body. What you see your body is instead a model inside your head, is a pattern of neural activity inside your brain. But you think you see it, but you don't really perceive it directly. It's a pattern of neural activity inside your brain. That's why this is important, this distinction, because we tend to confuse this with this. And I think this confusion is what makes understanding consciousness so difficult. That is the basic, the most important concept here. There are many details, but this is the most important. Everything in my theory is around this distinction. And I'm going to try to explain the three assumptions. I was talking about this, neuroscience and because I don't have much time. This is why I'm not going into details, but you can ask me later. And also, I have an article online which is you can read if you are interested, although it's in English also. But Vadim read it using a переводчик. Or in English, maybe. So, because we confuse the B cells with the T cells, our model inside the brain with the reality, we have what's called the illusion of reality. We tend to take for granted everything we see. We think that's reality. But we kind of know it's not reality, but we always believe it's real. But it's not real. It's inside our heads. Everything you perceive, you feel, you see, it's all inside your head. It's not outside. So, for example, that explains that while we are dreaming, we don't notice that we are dreaming. We believe that it's real, right? When you dream, you don't think, oh, I'm dreaming. No, you think it's real. So the same thing here now. You think this is real, but it is not real. I mean, it's not real in the sense that it's not the reality, but it's the reality inside your brain. So that confusion leads to the illusion of reality. We we cannot help but to continue to believe in the illusion of reality. And there is a Chinese tale about this called Butterfly, which you can check later if you want. Um, and inside the illusion of reality, part of the illusion of reality is the illusion of self. You are not you. What do I mean by this? Again, you, which is the model of yourself inside your head, is not the physical you, what you think is your body and your thoughts and your brain. It's not that. It's a model. It's a part of. It's not even the model of yourself. It's inside your brain, but it's not all your brain. It's just a fraction of your brain. So that fraction of your brain has a model of the brain and also of your body and of the rest of the world. Um, so it's like inside your brain you have a mirror that is reflecting the rest of the world and yourself. So you confuse the model of yourself with the physical self. And this is what makes understanding consciousness so difficult. Um, so when I try to do this theory, it's going from thinking that I am an observer, conscious observer, which sometimes become unconscious. Instead of that, what I say is that consciousness is always, it's not turned on and off, it's always there. That I is what is turned on and off. And that's why I call this theory on-off synecdoche. By the way, synecdoche, yeah, I didn't explain it, but synecdoche is basically, it's a term in poetry, which means representing the whole with a part of it. So for example, if you say, so like a synecdoche, um, this is a bad example, but I cannot think of anything else. If you want to say U.S. military, sometimes people say the Pentagon. So the Pentagon is just part of the military, but it's a part, but they use it as a metaphor for the whole. So when you use a part to represent the whole, that's called a synecdoche in poetry. That's why the theory is called synecdoche. So our brain has a synecdoche for the body itself. So a part of the brain represents the whole brain and the whole body. So a part inside you is the model of the whole of yourself. That's a synecdoche. And the synecdoche or model is turned on and off. And that's the basics of the theory. This is the key elements of the theory. Now I'm trying to go a bit more into details, explaining the three main parts of the theory. But okay, these are the three parts. I have more slides on this. This is a summary of the three parts. The first one is from neuroscience. The brain is an inference and stochastic simulation machine, which has a generative model of the world. Basically, the brain has a model of the world. But when I say world, it means not only outside, but also the body, yourself, and your brain. So this is the model inside your brain that is trying to simulate the rest of the world. That's the first element of the theory. The second is what I was talking about when I was referring to the model of yourself. So the internal model of the self is an intermittent, it turns on and off, and simplified representation invoked only when needed. So here is a crucial point. So the brain has a model of yourself, of itself, and of many other things in the world, but these presentations are not always active. They are turned on and off, activated and deactivated only when they are needed. So for example, the model of yourself. When your model of yourself inside the brain is deactivated, you are unconscious. So this would explain the difference between conscious and unconsciousness. For example, when you go to work and you use the metro or the train or the car, and you do this every day, sometimes you do this unconsciously. You get out of home, you start thinking in your stuff, and when you notice you're already at your workplace, you think, oh, how did I get there? You were unconsciously going all the way from your house to your workplace because the brain didn't need the model of yourself to solve the problem of going from your house to the workplace because it's something automatic. When you learn things automatically, the brain turns off your model of yourself because it's not necessary. And that is perceived as unconscious. It's a bit subtle, but maybe I can explain it later. So the model of yourself can be turned on and off, and the brain decides to turn you on and off depending on whether you are needed or not. You're just like a middle manager or little slave of your brain, if I might say. And the third part is this philosophy of mind. Here I say that we need panpsychism together with this to explain why consciousness is how it looks like. Now, all this I'm going to now explain in slides and pictures, if I have time. I'm just going to repeat the same thing, because only with this is maybe difficult. But I have like a small part about theories of consciousness. I'm not going to explain this, but just want to let you know that there are many theories of consciousness in neuroscience. And for example, let's say some theories referring to beats and one other thing. But there are many theories of consciousness, and no one, I believe, is one close to that. But anyway, just saying that in neuroscience, these are the most popular, for example, or in cognitive science. Sorry, I'm going to skip this, but we can go back if you want. Well, maybe I can just mention this very briefly. It was also mentioned before. Most theories of consciousness take something that occurs with conscious experiences and then assume that conscious experiences are somehow caused by these activities. For example, Pranami's theory says when the brain computations have high complexity, then it's more conscious because empirically, neuroscientists have found that when the brain activity is more complex, people tend to be conscious. So that's one example. My theory different with this from all these theories in that I don't think that there is something called consciousness. This is a bit controversial, but what I say is that the subset of conscious experiences pervades all the world of earth. So there is something conscious everywhere, pervading all matter. It's not something special about our brains. So you would say, okay, so does it mean that a stone is conscious? Yes and no. I would say it's not conscious in the way we think consciousness because we are very different from stones. We have a model of our stones. We have a D cell. A stone doesn't have a D cell. That's a crucial difference. So stone has something where you call it consciousness or not is controversial. But the thing that enables consciousness is in the stone. And so what enables consciousness is the reason. Whenever it's activated, so the decision in the brain, then you become conscious. That's the idea. So this is a small, uh, very quickly, illustration of the first part of the theory, which is physics. Um, this is just to say that the brain has a model of the world. Why am I showing these pictures? This is just to say that the world is a very complex place, and because it's a very complex place, the brain needs a very complex model. That's basically it. So we need brains to exist in the world. Basically, we live in a critical world, um, and critical worlds, criticality in the sense of physics, are very complicated and require models to explain them to predict the future with some accuracy. Our world is critical, and because of that, we need brains to exist because we live in a critical environment. Sorry that I skipped all the details. So inside the brain is also a state of criticality. Why is it? There are many reasons for this, but the most important one is that it needs to model the world outside the brain, and the world outside is critical. So the brain also needs to maintain a critical state. So there is a whole field in neuroscience which studies criticality in the brain. Criticality as example balance between excitation and inhibition. The criticality is all over the world in sandbox, metrics, earthquakes, and limits. It pervades physics. So we live in a simulation of the world, miniature world simulation. This I already said this. This is a picture, and the simulation is very accurate. So we are a fool that we believe in it. We look at this and we think this is a real world. I'm repeating what I said before. So the brain has a hierarchical structure from sensory areas to price areas containing things like genetically genetically um, relay important knowledge from our system that we need to survive. Like from here to here, like this would be things like visual cortex, auditory cortex, and here we will have the hypothalamus and orbitofrontal cortex. So there is a hierarchy from fast to slow objects in the world. So depending on the brain area, each brain area is modeling a different part of this hierarchy, and they all connect with each other to create this hierarchy that is a model of the world. And the B cell is just a small part of it, somewhere in the middle. Maybe near the top, but not the highest. So you are here, somewhere. Your boss is here. Look at the people house, somewhere, and they tell you what to do and you resist those things. And from here you get information from your people state, like your eyes and hands. Um, sensation. So this is what you have inside your technology. So that was about the first part of my model. The second is the details, which I've kind of already explained, but I'm just going to go into a bit more detail. So as I was saying, there are many layers to the complexity of the brain. Each one of them devoted to different time scales. So we have the perceptual active time scale, perceptual model, you could say. Things like what is my body, what is not my body, what are my perceptions, what are not my perceptions. You might think that ownership of perception is evident because you know what you're seeing always. But sometimes it's also clear, like in schizophrenia, sometimes people don't really know what they are seeing is inside their head or outside. So in some pathological cases, this is disrupted. Actually, schizophrenia is probably one of the most important pathologies for studying consciousness because these all these attributes of the B cell become disrupted. Motor agents, so these are all fast changing attributes of the B cell. Then there are middle term, which is things about what I call diachronic cells. That's part of what you call it B cell. Things like decision making, recalling, thinking. It's about deciding what you're going to do now or in a few minutes. And then longer parts of the B cell. These are things like they change very slowly, like your habits, your preferences, slowly changing. An amoeba also has a B cell, but it's very different. And to the extent that it's different, its consciousness is different. We have a representation of our body in there. Somatosensory cortex. This is part of the B cell. Sensory motor processing. This is a whole field of neuroscience. So all this is part of the D cell. Simulating the future. So, so I want you to think of yourself as a middleman. As if you're in a company, you are somewhere in the middle. You have a boss, and you have also lower workers. You're somewhere in the middle. You are here because you can control your senses, your body, you can move, but you don't really decide what you want to do. What you want to do is given to you by the boss. But you really think that you decide what you do, but in reality it might not be like that. I think he makes it think that we do what we want, but we actually do what he wants, our boss. Because our boss sits there in their unconscious and we don't control it. He controls us in a very insidious way. So the illusion of selfhood is confounding the B self with the P self. So if you think of this, I think that this confusion is what explains the difference between consciousness and unconsciousness and the problems related to consciousness theories. And as I said at the beginning, your model of T cell, which is a representation inside your head, can be turned on and off. You don't really think so, right? Because you think I'm always awake the whole day. But when you think of that, most of the time, you don't really think about what you're doing. Your T cell is there, but your B cell is deactivated. So I want to think of consciousness as a TV metaphor. So usually we think, okay, I'm here and I'm watching TV. So if you see the TV as consciousness, you say, okay, the TV can be turned on and off, but I'm always here. It's just that sometimes I'm unconscious or unconscious. That's what I mean by being on and off the TV.